we'll front load it with the Lions. We'll do that because there's a lot more non-Lions stuff that I got to talk about. So we'll front load it with the Lions so far because that's the primary interest I have in all of this. So the Lions start their offseason. They made 3, I wouldn't say major, but 3 moves so far. First things first, Derrick Barnes gets a 3-year extension. Derrick Barnes was out all of last year due to injury, but a couple of years back, 2023, 2024 season, he had pretty much his coming out season. He had a game-winning interception in the divisional round in the playoffs. One of the earlier Brad Holmes draft pick selections adds to a pretty deep linebacker room for the Lions. I like the signing. I like Derrick Barnes. If he could stay healthy, he's definitely going to be useful. I mean, definitely a lot more there than Pat O'Connor or whoever the heck we had out there, Trevor Nowatzki, whatever. Definitely a lot more there. No disrespect to those guys. They played as well as they could have, which doesn't say much. But Derrick Barnes gets a 3-year extension, so Brad Holmes immediately showing he's going to reinvest in the defense. Then the move that I was a little confused by, and I think most people were confused by it, Marcus Davenport gets re-signed to a 1-year deal, not worth a whole lot of money. So, you're not worried about the term or the actual cap space he's taking up, but Marcus Davenport, I think he played 1 or 2 games last year, then was out for the season. He really has not showed an ability to stay healthy. Obviously not stay healthy with us. He didn't show that ability in Minnesota. He didn't even really show that ability in New Orleans. But clearly, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, the rest of the coaching staff, they clearly see something in him. They clearly seem to think that he's got something left. We'll see, but I have my doubts. Now, the main move that I got to talk about here, and then we'll talk about, I guess, how this characterizes the rest of it all. The Lions signed DJ Reed, so they invest in the secondary. That's their big, what you might say, the splash move, at least so far. 3 years, $48 million. They move on from Carlton Davis, who goes to sign with the Patriots for a 3-year, $60 million deal. So obviously, Carlton Davis's asking price of $60 million, 3 years. No, that was not in Brad Holmes' table, or it was not something we wanted. So we got, a 3rd-round pick and Carlton Davis. Okay, I could live with that. It was a good year. I liked Carlton Davis. Obviously, the injury really, set us back. So we'll see if he ends up staying healthy with New England, but he really hadn't shown, even back when he was with Tampa, he really hadn't shown an ability to stay healthy for a full 17-game slate. But when he was healthy, he was definitely one of the better pieces on the defense. So he's going to be missed in that regard. But DJ Reed, I think it's pretty much a wash. I think you're pretty much flipping, quality corner for quality corner. You might say that they have much more of a belief in DJ Reed in so much as they invest 3 years now in him. So your secondary, I've been thinking about this. Your secondary now is basically Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, DJ Reed, Amik Robertson, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. That's not bad. I can live with that. Terrion Arnold, I think he gets a little bit of a bad rep in so much as compared to other rookies, the Cooper DeJeans of the world, he didn't perform at that level. Now, it should be noted that the defensive line that he was working with was dead. The best player on the defense, Aiden Hutchinson, was out for the most of the year. But Terrion Arnold still played decently well. He wasn't amazing. I know the Pro Football Focus, PFF, they didn't really grade him out that high. Just watching the games, there was never a lot of moments where I was like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Terrion Arnold, letting a guy, totally destroy him kind of thing. Obviously, he needs to grow, but I'm not upset about it. So your secondary to me seems secure. Okay. Here's the thing. The move that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, and maybe we'll see how it ends up panning out. Lions are not keeping Zadarius Smith. They're releasing Zadarius Smith. Apparently, whatever it is that he was asking for is too much. Now, he hasn't been signed by anybody as of yet. So technically speaking, he's still out there and very well could come back in, as free agency, as the days go by. But I really thought, given the, willingness to go out and trade for him, given that, after Aiden Hutchinson went down, he's probably your best pass rusher. I figured you might have had a similar kind of pass rush group that Cleveland had with Myles Garrett on one end and Zadarius Smith on the other. Evidently, that was not what Brad Holmes had in mind. So now I stand here, or I sit here, I should say, just sort of wondering what exactly is the next, shoe to drop in terms of a move on the defensive side. Because, well, we'll get to it in a little bit. Myles Garrett already re-signed. Max Crosby already re-signed. Josh Sweat went and signed with Arizona. Harold Landry, I'm just saying, obviously the elephant in the room that I'm avoiding mentioning by name is Trey Hendrickson. So Trey Hendrickson, one of the things that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, he actually played for New Orleans while Dan Campbell was there. And I think Aaron Glenn was there, but obviously Aaron Glenn no longer with the team. But there might already be something of a relationship there. I'm sure that Brad Holmes has asked him about it. Now, to be fair, though, when he was with the Saints, he was not the player that he is with the Bengals. The Bengals, he's always been a Pro Bowl caliber player. Last year, he was an All-Pro. He led the league in sacks. Now, granted, Aiden Hutchinson goes down. Does he still lead the league in sacks? If Hutchinson is healthy all year, I don't know, but he does. Either way, the thing about Hendrickson is he's asking for money, and the Bengals are allowing him to, look into getting traded. But the thing is, if the Bengals don't want to make the trade, if whatever the other team is offering, whether it's the Lions or any of these other teams, they're not going to take it. So my thing is, I think you need to put a reasonable offer out there for Hendrickson. Not, don't go ahead and drop 3 first-round picks and, Brian Branch for Trey Hendrickson. Don't do that. That's stupid. Okay? He's a good player. He's not I wouldn't even support that if it was Myles Garrett. That's absurd. But there certainly could be an offer that might be worth taking. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't really trust the front office of Cincinnati right now. They're franchise tagging T. Higgins. The guy can't escape. They still have to pay Jamar Chase. They're kind of in a tough spot right now. And I think if you make the right offer, you might push it. Now, ultimately, my rational brain takes over and says, okay, if Trey Hendrickson is this good, in what world would Cincinnati not want insane amounts of picks or players for him? If I'm the GM of the Cincinnati Bengals and I'm offered a second-round pick and a third-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, I'm hanging up the phone. Now, if Brad Holmes can somehow trick the general manager into thinking these second and third round picks, look, they're going to be great, they're going to be amazing, and maybe even throw in a Josh Pascal and say, look, Pascal, he hasn't really worked out for us, but maybe you guys can develop. You obviously developed Hendrickson, so maybe you can develop Pascal. Maybe you do something like that, and okay, then if the GM for the Bengals becomes the GM for the Dallas Mavericks, then sure. But realistically, it's not fantasy football. It's not Madden. You can't just, and I appreciate that the talking heads in the media and that people in general are talking about it and at least having the discussion. But reasonably, in the event that we trade for him, we're also going to have to pay him. And I'm not saying that's, whatever. You'll figure it out. I'm never concerned about paying a player. If he's a good enough player, I don't care how much you pay him. It doesn't really matter to me. You pay the good player and you don't play the bad players, or you don't pay the bad players. That's how it works. So if you sign a good player for a lot of money, I don't care. It's all a part of the business of it. With all of that being said, the offseason is still very early on. I mean, last year, around this time, I remember people being very confused because the only major move the Lions had made was trading for Carlton Davis. And oh my gosh, what are we doing? And then, or Marcus Davenport, and oh my gosh, what are we doing? Brad Holmes has lost his mind. Why isn't he trading for X? Why isn't he signing Z? Like, you just have to give it a little bit of time. And I'm not going to grade an offseason based on 2 days of free agency. Let me see what happens in the draft. Let me see what happens in the rest of the offseason. Let me see what happens once we get to training camp and maybe some guys get hurt, or maybe, guys start going off. Maybe Levi Onwuzurike takes another step forward. I don't even know if he's going to stay with the team, but you get what I mean. Like, guys come out of nowhere. And ultimately, like I said at the start of the show, the winners of the offseason, they don't get to raise banners necessarily. Sometimes they do. They don't get to hold trophies. Sometimes they do. But it's not because they win the offseason. I mean, I've gone through now. It's going to be year 2 of the Bears winning the offseason. And I have yet to see the Bears win anything in the regular season. So, overall, I'm moderately, content with the moves made so far. I like Derrick Barnes. Glad they kept it along. I'm glad that they seem to have a certain amount of trust in him as that linebacker room depth. I like DJ Reed. Again, it secures that secondary for me. Makes it a much tougher unit. Hopefully, we don't have to see Kindle Vildor for a 3rd year in a row. And Marcus Davenport, look, it's a 1-year deal. Prove it. If you're a valuable player, go off. Basically, like, go out and be a really good player for us. That would be super. It would really be nice to have that guy opposite of Hutch that can have an impact. So we'll see. Either way, a decent start to the offseason. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to yell about it. Hi, it's me again. If you enjoyed what you just saw, hit the like and subscribe button. We do live shows every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you there.